So, as usual, disclaimer. The following will contain spoilers for 13 Sentinels Aegis stream. If you do not want spoilers, I highly recommend you to go play the game yourself or watch someone's playthrough. If you're still here, I'm willing to assume that you either don't mind spoilers, don't care, or... What was I going to say? Oh yeah, or that you already know what I'm talking about. So, with that out of the way, enjoy! Today, the topic of discussion for our 13 Sentinels Aegis from character files will be one Ida Tetsuya, our favorite obsessive, manipulative bastard of a yandere. Now, don't mind me, I'm trying to emulate Ida's voice and failing horribly at it. But it is very enjoyable to speak like this, so please bear with me on this. As per our usual operating procedure, we will be discussing it in chronological order, starting with the 2188 Ida Tetsuya. Considering that the clones don't stray far from their base personalities based on their original genetic donors, we are able to glean many traits of Ida Tetsuya 2188 simply by looking at the actions of Ida Tetsuya of the second and third loops. Shu Ameguchi specifically has shown that Ida Tetsuya was most likely completely disillusioned or bored with the world due to being a born prodigy who was very adept at both physical and mental prowess. The 2188 Ida Tetsuya manipulated Ryoko Shinonome, which eventually led her to being consumed by her despair and attempting to sabotage Project Art so that it would never allow humans to thrive again. For what reason Ida Tetsuya manipulated Ryoko's feelings, it was never explained, so we can only guess at this point. But I'll leave theories up to the end of the video, so we'll gloss over this part for now. He is one of the 15 survivors of the extinction event of 2188, and his role in Project Art is unknown, as we don't get much of a glimpse into what he actually did outside of bug testing of the program within Project Arc. With that out of the way, now we will go discuss the Ida Tetsuya of the first loop. There is no data at all as usual. So, we're skipping directly to the second loop Ida Tetsuya, and my word, there is so much to discuss about this obsessive yandere. Ida Tetsuya of the second loop is in love with Tomi Kisaragi of the second loop, namely Miyuki Inaba. He supported her throughout her fledgling career and even was the one to push her to post her videos online in the second loop so that she would have more confidence in herself. Ida styled himself after a bad boy after asking Tomi Kisaragi what kind of person, or should I say, what type of guy would she like to date, which she jokingly responded with the bad boy type, which, at Ida Tetsu's admission, was the reason why he completely changed himself. Because before that, he looked more like his adult version in the third loop than anything else. After Ida Tetsuya lost Tomi Kisaragi, he desperately did everything he could to find a way to bring her back, eventually realizing the reality of the situation they were in by extensively studying the logs that were left behind by the command probe. Ida Tetsuya would then later find, or should I say, happen upon the files of Renya Goto and the news reports about the brainjacking incidents that led to the extinction of humankind in 2188. From those files, he would then use them as basis for his research. His research being, well, transplanting memories back into bodies. Yes, he wanted to revive his Tomi Kisaragi by inserting her memories into the nanomachines known as the interlocutors and shoving them into the Tomi Kisaragi of the current loop's body so that he could forcefully reincarnate his Tomi Kisaragi. This would later lead him to torturing prisoner number 426, Jiro Izumi, and forcing him to answer his questions. because Juro had the most extensive knowledge of all the systems, of all the data inside the logs. He would bring back Juro into an android body, force him back into the simulation, then torture him, forcing him to answer his questions. However, he underestimated how tenacious Juro could be. Although, I suppose it isn't underestimation. He just never expected Juro to be so fast, because he always made it a habit to limit the amount of time that he would talk with Juro, because he always was afraid of him. He knew that as soon as he gave 426 even a second of an inch, Juro would be able to take a mile quite easily, proven by when he stole Tomi Kisaragi's android body from her. Ida Tetsuya's obsession and love for Tomi drove him to great lengths, very desperate and dire lengths. However, they were to such extremes that he even started to ignore Tomi's desires. Tomi Kisaragi would not relent and would not allow her Ida Tetsuya to become a monster and forcefully brainwash someone into becoming Miyuki Inaba, even if technically they're all the same person. Because of the fact that the memories, the experiences that they went through were all different, the people they have gotten to know and have been surrounded with. Miyuki Inaba could not allow Ida to cross that line because she felt that it was morally unethical, that it was severely wrong to try and force herself back to life by taking over the body of someone else, even if it is technically her. Unfortunately, this drove Ida insane. It made him incredibly distraught because he could not accept Tomi not wanting to be brought back to life. In his own words, it's all meaningless and pointless without Tomi. He was willing to damn the world, damn the simulation, and damn all of humanity as long as he could bring his Tomi back. And so, he concocted a plan. He would force a reset of the world and then inject Tomi's memories, or should I say Miyuki Inaba's memories, into the new iteration of Tomi Kisaragi while she was still a child. That way, Miyuki Inaba would be reincarnated without truly knowing what happened. Now, how that would happen is Ida would use the memory backups from her before the kaiju invaded, meaning she would have no idea that she had died. He would essentially have used the data from when she was alive, disregarding, or should I say, separating the data of her death from her, so that that way, Miyuki Inaba would believe that she was merely Tomi Kisaragi and would not have any knowledge of her being reborn again. And so, that was when Ida Tetsuya's path towards destroying the third loop started. When he found Shinanomi Ryoko and realized how strong her feelings were for him, he felt absolutely nothing. He felt no guilt, no remorse at using her. He extensively used her to his advantage whenever possible. He also had planned to use her as patient zero, essentially, for the Sentinels' corruption. However, Ryoko infected a Sekigahara Sentinel first. However, that doesn't really matter because it still gave Ida what he wanted. The Sentinels out of commission, the pilots unable to fight back, and the loop doomed to death. He had extensive knowledge of the system at that point, so he essentially programmed himself to become an important part of the system. In the simulation, his position, his prestige, his riches, his power, all of them came from manipulating the data of the simulation through inserting bits and pieces of false data that the system would not immediately consider incorrect, wrong, or just outright malicious were, it would ignore it even after finding out that it was tampered with, because of the fact that the data technically is still part of the simulation and it is technically nothing wrong. Ida Tetsuya would later fake his death during the defense of 2064 because he wanted to ensure Morimura and Eisekigahara to an extent could not stop him, except since Eisekigahara lost his memories, Ida Tetsuya found a convenient tool to use for himself. He decided to try and take advantage of Eisekigahara like he did with Ryoko Shinonome. However, Ida never accounted for the fact that A had kept a backup of his memories. A had a backup plan against Ida Tetsuya and was actually working for Morimura in the first place when he was pretending to be working for, well, Ida Tetsuya. Anyway, Ida would later start to use his authority as the SIU director to force investigations and keep tabs on all the 15 pilots. His plan was to ensure that the pilots could not operate properly with the Sentinels so that they would lose the fight against the kaiju. His obsession with Tomi continued, and he kept the most extensive files when it came to Tomi, detailing every little bit of her life, including her preferences, what she liked to eat, what she preferred to dress in. His obsession with Miyuki Inaba, his love for her, never died even one bit. And that is what drove him to true insanity. However, because he had acquiesced to Miyuki Inaba's desire to become an AI pilot of the Sentinel, he made a special clause in his program, in his virus, which would send Miyuki Inaba somewhere safe and isolated from the simulation so that she would not be able to come back. Fortunately, his plan did not go as he desired, mainly due to misfortune on his part, because of Tomi Kisaragi ending up in the future, thanks to Ryoko Shinonome's it, accident is the only real way to put it, because Ryoko did not intend to send Tomi, Nenji, and Miwako to the future. Ida ordered his agents to search for BJ because he realized that Keitaro Miura had tricked him. Keitaro had created a backup of his logs, his memories, not only of the second new Keitaro Miura's memories, but also the memories of the 2188 Keitaro. They were all downloaded into BJ. He also ordered his men to make sure that they would capture Ace Sekigahara. He wanted to ensure that no one would be able to get in between his plans. Unfortunately for him, he never considered that number 426 would easily become a major obstacle to his plans. Still, the ironic part is, Ida Tetsuya should actually be, well, grateful to prisoner number 426 because thanks to prisoner number 426, the first loop Juro Izumi's plans working out had actually allowed him to be reunited with Miyuki Inaba, his Tomi Kisaragi, which is hilarious when you think about it, quite poetic. Because though Juro Izumi has proven to be a severe character when it came to doing what must be done, he has also proven that his love and his compassion for others is immense, despite how deadpan he sounds most of the time, or sarcastically mean. Ida blackmailed Yuki Takemiya to become his agent within Sakura High to keep tabs on all of the 15 Sentinel pilots. Ida would eventually be killed by Ryoko Shinonome for his betrayal, which is quite fitting, considering that the Ryoko Shinonome of 2188 sabotaged Project Arc because of 2188 Ida Tetsuya's betrayal of her love. And so it really proves that some things are unavoidable and fate can sometimes repeat, even though the circumstances are now different. But Even something like death could not keep Ida Tetsuya's obsessive love down. He had a contingency plan already set out as soon as his, death was confirmed. A machine was programmed to download his memories into a android body if such a occurrence that his biosignature was to disappear. However, considering that he is no longer human and is actually bits of data, what actually happens is that he configured the system to re-download his data back into an android body whenever his data is expunged from the system, or possibly when it is being removed from the system, it will circle back. However, all of this is more of computer speak, and you're not here for IT. Ida Tetsuya of the second loop was also very much blinded by his own avarice, because when A Sekigahara confronted him and informed him of this being the last loop, Ida Tetsuya completely broke down, unable to accept the fact that he was wrong, that everything was about to end, because Miyuki Inaba had tried many times to warn him of the things she learned while trapped inside the command ship, such as the facility reaching its expiration date and the simulations being almost over, done with, and not being allowed another reset. Ida was so distraught that he completely froze up, unable to process the information, which gave A Sekigahara the opening to destroy his android body, thus finally ending Ida Tetsuya's role in the third loop. And as stated, after 5 years had passed and the simulation was brought back to life because they forced a reset to before the kaiju attack, Ida Tetsuya had been one of the first people to be brought back to the program. Miyuki Inaba still had love and trust for Ida, and all of them had agreed to give him reins. Ida Tetsuya would then start to show a more human side of himself. He had admitted that he was afraid that Miyuki Inaba would have disapproved of him, that she would start to treat him like a monster because of how very close to passing beyond that line he was during the third loop. However, because Miyuki Inaba understood Ida, she accepted him for his faults and his genius. And so Ida Tetsuya was tasked with restoring the five sectors, helping to restore the simulation back to its state before the kaiju attacks for all five sectors, with the promise that he would later be reunited with Miyuki Inaba, being sent back to the command ship so that he would accompany her there for all eternity, or until the command ship ever malfunctions or gets destroyed, I suppose. However, that's kind of hard to imagine considering that the nano machines behind them can consume and use any debris around them to continuously construct their own parts. So it's kind of hard to see them not being together forever, which is exactly what Ida Tetsuya wants. Ida Tetsuya makes for a compelling antagonist because of the fact that he is doing all of this for his own love, though twisted by it. He is doing all this technically for a selfless reason. Well, one would argue a selfish reason, because he doesn't care about the state of others except one person, which is the person he obsesses and cares about the most. And with that comes the end of the second loop Ida Tetsuya. Now we shall begin to discuss the third loop Ida Tetsuya. Or should I call him Shu Amiguchi? Ida Tetsuya, by his own confession, took, himself in the third loop and put him with the Amiguchi family in Sector 2. Shu Amiguchi, regardless of being raised in a different family, still possessed all of Ida Tetsuya's brilliance. His grades were spectacularly high, even though he barely studied. He could learn languages with ease. His ability to, well, learn things was at an incredible rate. Included were martial arts skills, musical talent, and even to an extent model building. Shu Amiguchi, though, because of his brilliant prodigious talent, also felt incredibly bored with life. He viewed everything as a drag because of the fact that there was no challenge for him, which is also part of the reason why he fell for Yuki Takemiya. Because her tomboyish nature, her brutish, battle violent tendencies, was a breath of fresh air for Shu. Something exciting, unpredictable, something that he wanted so badly in his life. I will not sugarcoat it. Shu Amiguchi came off sometimes as a creep due to how aggressive he pursued Yuki Takemiya. Some people would argue that it's simply love. However, the amount of times that he would surprise her and then ask her out on a date, waiting for her answer in the oddest of places, actually at one point started to make Yuki Takemiya contemplate whether or not Shu was a threat due to, well, it feeling a lot like he was a stalker. Shu would later get his wish when Miyuki Inaba contacted him, wanting to ask him for help to make sure Ida Tetsuya's plans would not come to fruition, and to save everyone in the third loop. Shu Amiguchi would take his bike out as per Miyuki Inaba's instructions beyond 30 meters, only to find that there was absolutely nothing beyond 30 meters. Now, from our perspective, we understand that everything was nothing more than a simulation, so this is conjecture on my part, but what I believe happened was Miyuki Inaba programmed the outer layer of the simulation to become like that, as a physical representation that was easy to comprehend for someone seeing something, to understand immediately what was happening. Because we have to remember, all of it was digital data being controlled by a command center. The simulation itself was automated. So, Miyuki Inaba most likely also overwrote the protocols that would usually insert fake memories into anyone who goes beyond the 30 meters of the simulation, or the city in this case. Such as with Yuki Takemiya visiting her grandparents, or her memories of being with Natsuno outside in the country, or even of Shu going on vacations to different countries. One thing to note, all of the countries mentioned inside of the simulation were fakes as well. None of them actually existed and were merely added there for, well, flavor text. Flavor text, and also to make it seem more real. Because as we remember, the simulation was meant to be an educational program to teach the 15 survivors, or should I say, the 15 inheritors of humanity, about the old earth, about our history, about our culture, and about our people. On an interesting note, Shu Amiguchi has proven to be very fast friends with Juro Izumi, which is very, very interesting due to the fact that number 426 and Ida Tetsuya seem to have a disdain for each other, even in 2188, where Ida Tetsuya has some reservations about Juro Izumi for some reason. Now, an interesting to note is that Shu Amiguchi's memories from Ida Tetsuya were not implanted into him by Ida Tetsuya. They were implanted into him by Chihiro Morimura as a test run for, you could consider it an experiment for something that she was planning to do. Because of the nature of it, I will reveal more about it in Chihiro Morimura's segment, which is further down the line. But it's very much something just as immoral as Ida Tetsuya's plans for Tomi Kisaragi's reincarnation, so just keep that in mind. Shu would then help fight off the kaiju with his sentinel, and eventually would marry Yuki Takemiya. Apparently, they have a daughter named Konatsu, and their daughter, on an interesting note, looks exactly like Natsuno Minami, which makes a lot of sense. Because, as we recall, Yuki Takemiya 2188 is the biological mother of Natsuno Minami of 2188. We have to remember that Natsuno and Yuki come from the same gene pool due to the fact that they are mother and daughter. So with that, we can close this chapter on Ida Tetsuya. However, I have several theories that I believe people would find entertaining or interesting. So if you don't want to listen to a weeb ramble on, you can pretty much close the video now because this is essentially close to the very end of it. If, however, you're interested in listening to me ramble on about my theories, thank you very much! I believe that Ida Tetsuya may have manipulated Ryoko Shinonomi's feelings to either recruit her into Project Arc or bring her to their side. Because at the end of 2188, after Sekigahara blew up the power generator, the 10 survivors voted on whether or not to continue with Project Arc. Actually, to be fair, they voted on what to focus all remaining power on, Project Art or life support. Sukasa actually spoke about how precious life was during that meeting. However, according to the mystery files, Hijiyama curses Nenji because Nenji and his cronies, which are pretty much Ryoko Shinonome and Ida Tetsuya, because Hijiyama and Tsukasa, although on their side, along with Renya Goto, the three of them actually did want a peaceful resolution. Unfortunately, Nenji, Ryoko, and Ida brought guns with them, which pissed off Juro, which led him to shooting Tsukasa, which led to Hijiyama murdering four other survivors, namely the four people who voted to continue Project Art, Juro, Izumi, and three other otherwise unmentioned survivors. We know who among the 15. We know what the three survivors are among the 15. However, it was never mentioned who were the last survivors that voted for Project Art alongside Juro. Anyway, what I think happened was Ryoko was for Project Art at one point, or at least was completely on Chihiro's side. But then Ida Tetsuya realized that Ryoko fell in love with him and decided to take advantage of it to bring her to his side. The other possibility is that Ida Tetsuya may have been trying to use Ryoko Shinonome for her skills. Because apparently she was a expert in biology and genetics. Though that would raise the question, what Ida would have wanted her help with. The only thing I can think of is that maybe Ida Tetsuya of 2188 wanted to use Ryoko to bring someone back to life, or genetically using the digital data of a record of genetic code to clone or create a body of someone. However, this is all conjecture, so don't take it seriously. I could be wrong, I could be right, or I could be talking utter crap. Another theory I can think of for the reason why Ida Tetsuya and Ryoko Shinonome ended up the way they were. Ryoko seems to display symptoms of depression. If not depression, then a weak sense of will. Now, by weak sense of will, I don't mean that she can't make decisions or anything like that. However, Emotionally, she feels like she's easy to bend to others, or in this case, easily swayed by her emotions. However, that's neither here or there. Ida Tetsuya and Ryoko Shinonome have an interesting relationship. However, we never get to know more about the 2088 versions of themselves. We do get a glimpse to what it possibly was, thanks to the third loop showing how Ryoko Shinonome eventually ended up killing Ida Tetsuya. Another possibility. It could just be that Ida wasn't actually trying to do anything special for Ryoko and she just misunderstood his intentions thinking he was in love with her. Though I kind of doubt someone as intelligent or as Ryoko would not only misunderstand someone's intention but to completely come to the conclusion that she was being played. So, unfortunately, the chances of Ida being innocent of any wrongdoings is pretty slim. Pretty fucking slim. And with that, we're finally done with Ida Tetsuya. Next episode, we'll be talking about the ever lovable brawling detective tomboy. That honestly sounds like a great concept for a series. Sherlock Holmes who got isekai'd into a tomboy girl. Anyway, Yuki Takemiya. So, with that as the ending note, thank you very much for viewing this and I hope to see you next time again. Oh yeah, I forgot to say, like, comment, subscribe. And what do you call this? I'll see you all next time. Hopefully anyway. Bye.